Content over everything.
The majority of the army, the majority of lawyers, the majority, not absolute, the majority of judges, and in fact all business, all parts of the democracy are in actual fact dominated by the private school and Oxbridge people. And they, in those schools, get taught about division. In those schools, they get taught about how the one way of thought is the only correct way of thought. How being right-wing is the only way to interpret this world. In actual fact, a left-wing and a right-wing in a democracy and in schools should be taught, not just a right-wing view of the world, which is what Oxbridge dominantly teaches. It dominantly teaches that accepting money from billionaires is how an education system should be run. And it's not just billionaires like Bill Gates. We're talking about people that have committed genocide in this world. Oil companies, nuclear companies, people like Cecil Rhodes. These people own Oxbridge.
Going back a bit,
and these, yes, Oxbridge's history. Oxbridge did not just materialise yesterday or today. It is owned by its own past, and it's the past of empire. It is a past of genocide across other countries, like in Africa, where it still today gets a load of money from the blood diamonds. Cecil Rhodes still, even though the fucker is dead, is still a major contributor towards Oxbridge. And also, the science in Oxbridge is dominated by funding from the weapons industry and the oil industry. And those are the last people ever should be allowed into our education system, ever. What should define an education of a country is truth, science, reason, and understanding. They should be the dominant factors of our school system. That is not the world we live in today. Sorry, you had a question?
Well,
a statement, a question,
do you know
a noise?
Do you know any countries that don't have an imperial past?
Wow, well, by the definition...
I'll tell you why I asked. The other day, somebody was having a go about Brexit and saying we have an imperial past. And the only EU member country I could find that never had colonies and never had an empire was Ireland.
Well, Ireland has an empire.
Well, there you go.
So
So while the British Empire might be a bit much, is there any country that doesn't have an imperial past to be ashamed of?
No.
Okay, so you're picking out one and having a go at that.
Empire. There are only a few empires in this world.
Or rather, never had colonies.
We've got the English Empire, which I'll call the Christian Empire.
Okay.
And then we've got the Catholic Empire, which is obviously who owned Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, if you at a push, yeah.
No, not at a push. At a reality, a description of history. Empires are the domination of a country through economic and political measures. And those political and economic measures result in the poverty, genocide and rape of the people of this world. That's the definition of empire. Empire isn't some jolly over to South Africa. What it is in fact going to South Africa and raping that country of its resources, of its natural resources, for the use of the elite, for the use for the people in power, who have been, by the definition of an empire, empires stretches over hundreds of years. And the only way that you can defend genocide and mass economic rape is through an empire, through a tool of religion and other resources like that.
No.
And the education system, I propose, would be free of these horrors, because it's every human being on this planet would end up having a decision in how our children will be educated for tomorrow. And the most people that I ever meet want a better tomorrow. That is the majority of people you'll ever meet in this life. We want a better tomorrow, and yet we don't have that.
No, we do.
We do not have a better tomorrow.
My today is far better than my today when I was 5 years old.
For you personally?
Yes.
Brilliant, yes. But there are countries in this world. In actual fact, I would say austerity today has made our parents now poorer than they were in the past.
Garbage.
Because our parents, my parents, used to own part of the country they lived in. They owned their own energy. They owned their own National Health Service. And in a way, in a small way, they actually owned a bit of their education, which was called a comprehensive education. That was the ownership of an education, which I propose, but I propose it universally, not just for one part of a child's development, but the whole development.
You said originally that
austerity is horror. Austerity is just a legalised economic rape of the people of this world, which happens to be in this country.
Well, how about the austerity when I was young, when it was run by Labour?
Yeah, but you had your own government then. You had a stronger democracy then. When you were younger, we had more social mobility. These things are now reducing dramatically. Austerity is one of the ways that the elite, stop people from being educated properly, from having social mobility. We must have social mobility for a country to respect each other from different walks of life. There's nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy. But what I propose is we'll do it where we all have access to wealth. If we work hard, if we train hard, if we are educated, and that's what we desire in life, then everyone should be entitled to that. Not just because you inherited money or because your parents sent you to a private school or Oxbridge. Because right now in this country, that's exactly what the world we have. And it's then they go on into Parliament and they describe the horrors of the world that we live in. They justify it, repeat it, and continue the horrors of this world. That's what Oxbridge and private schools end up teaching this in our world.
Okay, but what is the use of becoming a millionaire, becoming a trillionaire for that matter, if you don't use it to give a decent education to children, so if you don't have a yacht, don't have a chauffeur-driven car, etc. What is the use of acquiring all this money?
Yeah, what is the use? That's a very good question.
Yeah, he would agree, I imagine.
What is the use of acquiring billions? The reason why individuals in history acquire billions and trillions, I'm not going to talk about Bill Gates is separate to that, but the majority of billionaires are historically billionaires. And the reason why they have that wealth is so that nobody else can ever have that wealth. So nobody else can have access to healthcare, to education, to have a better world for not only themselves, not only their families, but the very communities that they live in. Because we all have to live in this world together. And this world also is populated by other species, not just the human species or the human race. And without proper education and proper human rights and a proper constitution, not only do we degrade the human species, but we destroy all human life on this planet, all life form, complex life form on this planet. And I believe that all life has a right to life, and that not one billionaire has the right to pollute it, because the pollution of the world comes from billionaires who own the oil, who own the nuclear industry, and who are all educated.
How about the plastic bag which are owned by us?
Oh, that plastic bag is the oil companies. They fund Oxbridge to develop new products for the oil products. That's what they do in Oxbridge. That's where it's funded. Go online, have a look to how our education system's funded in Oxbridge, and you've got yourself oligarchs. Oligarchs funding a political department in Oxbridge. These oligarchs have committed terrible human rights. And yet now, in Oxbridge, they're the people who are defining how politics will be taught to another generation. Sorry, carry on.
That's a relevant argument. Communists have, committed great genocide.
Wouldn't surprise me. I'm not talking about communism. I'm talking about private health system.
I'm just saying that the whole, it's endemic in our world.
This is the original sin theory. Most people that you meet, most people that wake up each morning actually wake up and want a better world. That is the reality. How many people have woken up this morning and thought, you know what I'd like to do? Fund a genocide in South Africa.
I woke up feeling that, but just today.
But they're just today.
Other than him and him, very few people.
Apart from the jokers in the audience.
Only for a bit of variety, Mr. Speaker.
Only for the jokers in the audience. The majority of the people actually want a better world. It's just that we're never given that.
That's just because you're a conformist.
And also that is proof how we don't live in a democracy. Because the majority would then have a rule, and the majority would want a better world. And if you lived in a democracy, that would be expressed through the political halls of the country that you live in, which right now does not happen. Oh, a little bit of excitement. What's he doing running over there? What are you going to do? You're going to put on your cape?
No, I was going to pick you up and throw you at them.
Be a Superman.
No, I was just going to chuck you at them to
I
defuse
admire
it.
your commitment, there's no doubt about that. But yes, the way we have to transform this world is one of the ways we have to transform this world is by ending the private school system and the Oxbridge system. And in its place, have the universal education system owned by every single person.
But we've tried it, Mr. Speaker.
No, we haven't.
The result.
No, we haven't. Oxbridge has always existed. We haven't tried it. It's never happened. Because the people that run this country need to run how your children will think, how your children will then go into power, and how they think in power, and how they interpret the world that they live in. Privilege, elite, but it doesn't happen by accident. The world doesn't happen by accident. It happens because it's designed by men and women, and it's designed by education. That's one of the tools. It's also designed by other means, which I'll talk about later. But the dominant way that we design a tomorrow, which is today, by the way, to be a little abstract. It's just to be a little abstract.
You mean planning for it?
Abstract. But the way we do that is through education. And if we educate our children to hate, then we'll live in a world where people will hate each other. If we educate our people to fight for global rights and human rights, then that's what the future will look like. But in our private schools and in Oxbridge, they do not teach human rights is the way forward. They do not teach that a constitution for the people of this world is the way forward. What they teach is the repression and genocide. Yo! Hello. How you doing?
Very well.
Huh? I will later on this afternoon. If you want 10 minutes, I can guarantee anybody here 10 minutes later on this afternoon, if anyone wants it. Like this good man here, who, by the way, is absolutely incredible speaker, everyone.
Mr. Speaker,
we don't agree on all things,
Mr.
but he's great at speaking.
In those 10 minutes, could you take me down to the Lanesborough for afternoon tea?
No.
Why? I want to get to know you better.
This platform is about how to transform our education system. Does anyone disagree with what I've said so far?
We've not been listening. Could you start again?
Do we need a national education service?
Oh yeah, you were here. We should need a universal education where everybody owns and has access to how the education system is controlled and run. A universal, not just for this country, but every boy and girl that is ever born, today and in the future. They all deserve a universal education where they understand humanity, human rights, educate arts, politics, culture, sexual education, etc. These are the bastions of a culture, and there's a culture that it will grow and prosper rather than commit genocide and war on another country, which is the world that we live in today. That's the culture. That's what private schools do. That's what Oxbridge does. They give you the world that you have today. That's the way. It doesn't happen by accident, this world. It happens because it's designed by men and women. Let us all be those men and women that design those schools. Let us all be those men and women that are invested in those schools, have ownership of those schools, and amongst ourselves agree to what is a basic human rights and a basic constitution. Anybody disagrees? Oh, come on, someone's got to disagree with that. Yay! Come on then.
I think that, I don't know if anyone's from here, but where did you go to school?
Mr. Speaker, are you ignoring us?
And so The question is, on what basis education would be different in two situations? What is your data?
He's asked what the data for why there would be difference between a universal education and the education that we have at the moment. Well, the data that we have right now is the world that we live in today, where you see hate in the newspapers for people who look different from you, where you have wars in other countries where you have the rich profiting from raw.
That is not a sequitur.
That you have where in America you don't have free health, and then if you don't have the right money, then you're not entitled to the best health. That comes from an education system.
George Orwell said we should suppress crime. Do you reckon we should do that?
Suppress? I don't. We need to make universal schools for everyone, and there should be no other schools. Guns out of people's hands because the society doesn't.
Yeah, and they would start.
This isn't happening today. When you talk about power structure, I'd agree with you that black representation takes place in media.
Come take over everything from your humanity.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
We have what's called diversity, which is basically if you're BAME, you get a loan or you get some money to start out in a journalist career. So, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that black people have an advantage to join that power structure. Over time, maybe it happens, maybe it won't. But what I'm saying is, if some people want to exclude, they don't want to be, we don't want to be part of your power structure because that's not a white power structure, then you're never going to get it.